Good morning, folks. I'm back again. And let's just call this a little political chit chat before I head off to work. Okay. So, yesterday was a perfect little microcosm of what the dysfunctional, Trump crippled, fascist cult GOP was all about. And I'm not going to talk about the Stormy Daniels testimony. I'm not going to talk about any of the stuff that's going on with the trial, except for one item of interest, and that will be the lead off here, because there are plenty of other people talking about her testimony and how it's going over that do it far better than I can, with much more legal knowledge than I have. So I'm not going to comment on that this morning. All right. But someone showed up in support of Donald Trump yesterday, and his name is Rick Scott. Now, the people of Florida literally elected a criminal when they elected Rick Scott to office. All right, we're going to talk about that. So they have a chance now to rectify this problem, because he did not win. He won by percentage points his last time around when he won the Senate. And this is a golden opportunity for the Democratic Party in Florida to rise to the occasion and get Debbie Murkisel-Powell elected. Florida can go a long way towards changing its current fascist course by getting rid of this guy. But he showed up at the courthouse yesterday in New York, uninvited by Donald Trump, unrequested by Donald Trump, just to show solidarity. Because why? Because he knows what political persecution looks like. That's what he says. So let's talk about what he's calling political persecution. Let's talk about where his camaraderie with Herr Trump comes in. In the 1990s, Rick Scott was the CEO of the nation's biggest for-profit healthcare entity, Columbia HCA. And while he was CEO, his company managed to get itself involved in the biggest Medicare scam in history for its time. This is what he's calling political persecution. They pled guilty to 14 felonies and were fined how much? $1.7 billion. $1.7 billion for the scam that they perpetrated with their clients and with Medicare. He's calling that political persecution, as opposed to shit flows downhill, as opposed to being held accountable. This is the problem we have in America right now, is the very trials that Donald Trump are stalling, the trial that he's involved in now, right now, this whole thing with the 2016 election and the payout and all of that, this will determine whether we actually have a rule of law that stands in this country. Make no mistake about this. But this guy, referring to himself as a someone who's been politically persecuted over this guy walked away from his company with a $300 million golden parachute that included 5 years of consulting for the very company that he helped to create the scam with for a 5-year period. Part of his going away package, his little going away party, was that he got $1 million a year contract to consult for 5 years. And then only in America could he become a senator. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about our system? That we need to have some kind of guidelines for character before anybody is allowed to run. In my opinion, all bets are off here. Donald Trump was a criminal before the people elected him. Rick Scott was a criminal before the people elected him. They have a chance to do something right. We have a chance to do something right as a nation when Donald Trump meets his fate in November. Secondly, Marjorie Taylor Gangrene went down in fine fashion yesterday on the House floor when she tried to vacate the speaker's seat. She was roundly booed, probably mostly by Democrats, but plenty of Republicans joined in rejecting her move. And by the way, I'm not a fan of Mike Johnson. I think he's one of the most dangerous men in America. But you know what? Right now, the Democrats seem to have him under some kind of control. I trust, believe it or not, Hakeem Jeffries to know what he's doing. So I am happy that we didn't have any more chaos in the House. We already have plenty of chaos in the House with this woman's big fat mouth. And, you know, if people that are her peers that are on her side of the aisle can start getting sick of her, maybe we can make some headway towards getting rid of her, or at least tamping down her dominance in the House of Representatives, which is directly tied to Donald Trump. So even though he's getting sick of her, he created that fucking monster. End of story. Okay? And then number 3, it's going to be from the Jackaloon himself. And although this didn't happen yesterday, this happened last week as he was courting the oil industry at Mar-a-Lago. So let me read you this quote, right? I'm going to read you a few others too. Actually, I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically, he said that everybody in that room, this is what Trump said, everybody in that room had enough money to be able to raise $1 billion for him to get back into the White House. That was his statement to the people he was courting at Mar-a-Lago at this dinner, okay? A blunt offer and actually transactional. You put me back in the White House, I'm going to give you what you want. He has already asked the oil industry to help put together his environmental agenda. The oil industry, the very people that have created the global warming we are now living with, the very people that knew that they were creating it and hid it. Okay? He promised them that he would roll back Joe Biden's mandates on clean energy and electric vehicles. He would allow new offshore drilling and fast track the permits and relax other regulations. This is his quote. I'll read this one though. You've been waiting on a permit for 5 years. You'll get it on day 1. He has promised a whole host of other things to the oil industry. And they were whining about Joe Biden. Make no mistake about it. Right? They said he constantly throws a wet blanket on the oil and gas industry. Well, that's because it's destroying the planet. And, you know, global warming doesn't have any boundaries. No one's going to save us. We're all in this thing together. Okay? And let me just tell you something. Don't think that those guys didn't walk away from that dinner considering his offer, because one of them, Harold Hamm, will be hosting a fundraiser for him later in the year that is guaranteed to raise more than the piddly $6.4 million they've given Trump so far. And the reason they haven't given it to Trump so far is because they're leery about the stuff he says and the stuff he does. But you know what? Everything has a price. Everything and every person and every oil executive in that room has a price. And if they can get what they want out of Donald Trump, they will return him to office. That, my friends, is the Republican Party today. And that is precisely why they have got to go. And Donald Trump cannot, absolutely not, be given the reins of power again. And that is just scratching the surface. I'll talk to you all later.